Okay, here's a little follow-up on the Cub Cadet with the melting hood. I bought a replacement hood for it. It wasn't cheap. It was a couple of $100. I think it was like $250. And so before I put it on, I want to be certain that it's not going to start melting as well. And I've mowed the lawn a couple times, and it seems like this hood is still softening up a bit from the heat. And I'm not sure, is it because all these things are now closer because they've melted and they're now closer to the engine where they'll still get soft. But it still gets soft, and I'm not comfortable yet putting on the new hood, because once that thing melts, I'm not going to just keep buying hoods. That's stupid. So I bought an additional heat shield that I think was offered in subsequent models, years of this thing, to kind of combat this condition. And let me show you what I bought. So I saw a sales video on a GTX 2100. They did a kind of a walk around and they popped the hood, and I noticed it had additional heat shields around the muffler. This one has this one heat shield, and the video that I saw showed additional heat shields on the side. And so I did some research, and this is what it was. And here's the part number. I bought it from Cub Cadet. And so this is it. This is an additional heat shield which protects the heat from the sides of the muffler. So let me show you exactly how that works. So here's the additional heat shield, and it's designed to cover up the sides of the exhaust, the muffler. I notice there's very little heat that comes past this heat shield, but a ton of heat comes out the side here. And that's where it's melting the hood on each side. So I want to get this thing on here. I mean, this thing, the exhaust is supposed to go through this thing, which means I'll have to take the muffler off, get it all positioned, the exhaust pipe in through here. Well, I'm not going to do that. This thing needs to be able to come off and on rather easily. So I'm going to modify it. I'm going to cut this thing up a bit so that I'm thinking I might just cut the back side of this tube open so that the muffler will just slide inside of it. You know, if I cut the back of this tube open, then I can just slide it around, and it will be covering the tailpipe, you know, around three sides of it. And then I'll be able to, you know, get it in place. This bracket bolts onto here. This bracket here bolts up to here. This hole here bolts up to here. But this needs to be able to come on and off without having to take the muffler off. I mean, that's ridiculous. Probably snap a bolt trying to take the muffler off, and then I'll have all kinds of problems. So I'm going to cut this thing up so that the exhaust pipe is protected on three sides. This will cover this side. And I don't know that I need all of this. There's already a kind of a heat shield down here. So let me take this off and see exactly how I can hack this thing up so that I can get it on and off if I need to, only removing this one thing without having to take the muffler off and all that. So I'm going to take this heat shield off and see what it looks like. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. This whole unit This whole unit is way too big to, and I don't even know if it actually went on this particular model year. Maybe the mower that had that shield came with a different muffler. I don't know. But this is way too big, and it's too much to get on there to be able to remove it if I need to do some service to the engine. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to cut this thing up to where I'm left with only the pieces that I'm really interested in. And mostly they are these side pieces here to protect the heat coming off the side of the muffler. The heat from the front here wasn't too bad. I can almost touch this heat shield with my hand. It wasn't that hot. Over here it was screaming hot. And if you look at the hood, I mean, that's the side of the muffler. And that's the side of the muffler with the exhaust pipe, tailpipe. And I think most of that melting was just due to the fact that the engine was running too hot because the cooling system was all clogged up. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to hack this thing up. This is what it looks like. I'm going to, this thing has a heat shield down here to protect the heat from going to this PTO clutch and pulley and all that. And here's where it's bolted to, and it's kind of a heat shield to the intake a little bit. And this goes on top like that. So really the only areas that I'm very concerned with this side, I mean, there's the exhaust. That muffler right there is like 400 degrees. And it's just melting the sides of the hood. So if I can, I'm just going to hack this thing up. I am going to cut, let me see. Let me mark this thing up to what I want to cut and see what it looks like. Let me get my Sharpie out, see if I can come up with a plan. Alright, here's what I'm thinking. Get this on here, which protects this area nicely, but it has no protection from heat on the sides. And we got this monstrosity of a heat shield, which is too big and too bulky, and requires the removal of the muffler to install and sneak in the tailpipe through here. That's crazy. So I think I'm going to just cut this thing. I've made a mark here like that, right on this seam. From there, remove this whole section and maybe split this tube on both sides just to leave perhaps a shield on the right side of this muffler to stop any melting from the hood over here. And then we'll see what it looks like. I mean, it should go on. Should fit something like this. I mean, all I'm really concerned with are these side shields. I don't need anything underneath because I've already got this. So I'm going to cut all of this bottom part out. Leave a little bit underneath here. Like about this much around here. And that much over here. And I may end up cutting this all the way off, but I'll at least split it in half and see if I can leave a heat shield to protect heat from coming out to the side. So I'm going to cut this there and there. Cutting that off, and I'm cutting up here and there, and I'm removing this whole section. And then we'll see what happens. That's the plan. So I'm clamping this thing into Big Red here, and I am going to cut along that line, along the top crease, and there. And on the bottom I'm going to cut along this line and then up this half of the exhaust tube here and remove this whole section. And then see what it looks like. Hopefully it fits. If not, I'll just keep cutting it away until it does fit good. And we have side heat protection. Because like I said, I'm not putting that replacement hood on there until I can mow and the hood, the existing hood there, is not getting soft. So let's get cutting. Alright, let's see what we got left here. Let's take this over to the machine and see what it looks like. Alright, let's see what kind of a mess we made here. If this will even work at all. This in first. Which goes like that. I think if I lop off, length of this here, I mean that might be okay. That might be okay. Give it a trial fit here and see what things look like. Alright, here's a little trial fit. Not bad, actually. I think I'm going to cut the excess shield for the exhaust on that line there. I don't need it sticking out all that way. We get a couple more fasteners up top and in the front. And let me cut that part of that shield off of the exhaust pipe and then fit this thing in here. A couple of fasteners there. Hopefully it'll be nice and sturdy and it won't be rattling. That's my biggest fear. Things gonna rattle like heck. But I mean that's what I was looking for. Some side covers for that muffler. Alright, let me cut that off and come back for another fitting. Alright, so I cleaned this thing up a little bit. I cleaned up all the sharp edges so the person coming in here after me doesn't cut their fingers off. And I filed it down a little bit. And I cut the length of this off. Just so you can get a kind of a look from here. It's got a little air gap all the way around it. Nothing's touching the actual muffler. Right now we've got just 2 fasteners on the shroud of the engine. And already it's pretty rigid. Now I'm going to secure the other heat shield. We'll go up here and also attach here and up there. So let's see how tight it all is once all that's secured. Hopefully tight and no rattles. So here we are now. We've got protection from heat over here on the side. Also the exhaust pipe that can throw off some heat. That's got a shroud on it for the most part. Another protection here on the side. It already had some kind of a heat shield protection underneath. So that should keep the heat away. I like it. Alright, it's pretty firm, pretty rigid. I am going to put a little thread locker on these bolts just so they don't loosen up through vibration. And then we'll come back and we'll look at the final product. But so far, I'm liking it. I'm going to use a little Loctite 243 just because I know these things are going to be vibrating. Alright, nothing's touching. Everything looks good. Let's Let's fire it up and take some temperature readings. Okay, let's fire this thing up, back it out, listen for all the rattles we might have, and take some temperature readings. Alright, so the motor's been running out here for about 5 minutes, wide open throttle, and it's kind of loud, so I'm going to stay here by the microphone and let you know. I'm going to take a temperature reading of the exposed part of the muffler from underneath the little area that I can get of it, and let's see how hot the muffler actually is right now. Alright, I can get a peek of the muffler, and it's 640 degrees, which I'm sure the sides of it are that hot as well, and without the shields on there, that's 600 degrees for 2 hours, it's no wonder the hood was melting. So let me go now and take a temperature reading of those side heat shields and see what the temperature those things are emitting. This is right on the hottest point of those side heat shields, 154 degrees, as opposed to over 600 without them. So that's going to be a big, big improvement. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's a dramatic reduction in heat emitting from that muffler now that it's all enclosed in those heat shields. I'm not going to put on my new hood just yet. I'm going to put the old hood on. Next time I mow the lawn, I will keep an eye on the hood. I'll be feeling it, see how hot it actually gets, see if it gets soft or starts melting at all. And if not, then we can go ahead and put the new hood. It's actually a used hood, but it's not melted at all anywhere. It's in pristine condition. And then we can put that new hood on there, and I think we'll be able to mow all summer long, and that hood should stay nice and rigid and firm and keep its shape and look nice. So at least at this point, I'm calling this a success, and I'm really impressed with how dramatic a heat drop is, temperature drop from that exhaust system just by covering up with these heat shields. Okay, so I think I've got it figured out with my melting hood problem, and many of you with this machine probably have a similar problem with the plastic hood melting from all the heat being generated from this engine. And I had kind of two issues that were causing my melting hood. One was the cooling fan, which was kind of clogged, so the fan wasn't blowing any air over the cylinder fins to keep the engine cool. So I think the engine was warmer than normal, and also the muffler didn't have heat shields all over it. I had one heat shield over the front of it, and I noticed in a video of this thing, it was like a sales video of a brand new machine, the guy was doing a walk around kind of showing it, and when he popped the hood, I was paying attention and I noticed that there were these side shields that were covering up the muffler, and I didn't have these side shields. So I went to the website, found a part number, ordered it, got it. I think it was like 75 bucks. It was more than, it was a huge monstrosity of a thing, so I cut up a lot of it and kept only the parts that I needed, mostly the sides and a little bit of underneath, and just a little cover on the tailpipe. and that's cut down dramatically on the heat that's generating and radiating from that muffler. And before I had these side covers on, the sides of that muffler were 600 degrees on each side, and in the hot sun mowing the lawn in the summer, I mean, the hood just couldn't take it. So now I've got these covers. I took some temperature readings, and instead of 600 degrees on each side, they're only showing about 150 degrees, so that's a dramatic reduction. And I can put my hands around it and it's not screaming hot anymore. I am going to mow the lawn one last time with the old melted hood and just make sure that it's, I'll keep touching it and make sure it's not too hot and that it's actually fixed before I put my new hood on, which is actually a used hood. But it's in perfect condition. There's no melting at all to it. So before I put that new one on, I just want to run it one last time. But I'm 100% confident that this thing is fixed, and it was a combination of the cooling fan and this muffler heat shields. And so that concludes this video. If you liked it, click the like button. If you got some comments, I'd love to hear them. Subscribe to the channel, and until next time, thanks for watching.